Hello Flosstube and welcome back to a new year. If you've not been watching my 12 Days of Christmas episodes, then this will be the first one you've seen from me this year, so Happy New Year. It is now January the 8th, so we are well into 2023. I spent the last half of 2022 writing 2023 on most things, so I'm hoping I won't start writing 2022 again. Who knows? I hope you're all well. I hope you had a nice Christmas if you celebrate Christmas, time with your family and friends, maybe time off for a little bit, and are looking forward to a new year. It's hard to say that, isn't it, with huge amounts of optimism, given the last few years that many of us have gone through. But I do hope 2023 will be a wonderful, happy year for you and your family. I had really planned to try and record this video in daylight hours. It's Sunday as I'm recording, so I'm out at church in the morning, and then someone asked me for lunch. I went for lunch with the vicar and his wife and various other people, and I've only just got home and it's 4:30 and it's dark. So I'm sorry, you have to put up with the rubbish lighting again. But, you know, now that I'm back at work, it's either weekends or not at all, really. So here we go. Now, if you have watched all of my 12 videos diligently, then, I mean, thank you. I mean, well done and amazing. You will have seen some of the things I'm going to talk about today, but I'm assuming that most people, if they've watched some, will have dipped in and out, and you may have missed some things. And some people might have... well, some people definitely haven't watched because the viewing figures have been quite a lot lower than on my normal floss tubes. So I'm just going to assume that you haven't seen everything I've done. And there are one or two things that are definitely new to be shown this time today. So I think I'm going to start with finishes. I've got some finishes. I've got some works in progress. I've got some new releases in the shop. And I've got some thinky thoughts to share with you towards the end of the video. So what have I finished since my last floss tube? Well, I finished this and I'm really pleased with it. So this is a slightly adapted version of the Darwin sampler by Hannah's Stitching. Hannah has a Gumroad shop and I'll put the link below for this. She has not loads but several really fun interesting patterns. She works in a science museum, not the science museum in London, but a science museum in London, and several of her patterns have got sort of insect, beetle kind of themes. But I am very poorly today. I'm very stupid and hate everybody and everything. There are just days, aren't there, like that? So I stitched it. This is Fox and Rabbit Winter Wren. I think it's a 36 count. This was a Steph Francis hand-dyed variegated thread. And then I just put it in this frame just to check the size, thinking it's a grey frame. I mean, why would I want... And then it was just like, actually, it kind of really goes with the feeling of the piece. And so I did adapt the chart slightly. So she has the origin of the quote. So it's a quote by Charles Darwin. So she has Charles Darwin to whoever it was who's writing to, and the date and some things here. And then so it goes along here with one of the details up here, and I sort of moved it around a bit. And I hadn't really planned it to fit in this frame, but as you can see, it fits perfectly. This is just a 6x4 frame that I had on the wall. It had like a postcard in it that I had framed, and I was like, well, I'll just see if that frame fits, and it does perfectly. And all I have done, I'd been watching Michelle Bendy Stitchy floss tube, and she had finished something recently where all she had done is wrapped the cross stitch around the glass in the frame. And because I was just checking out, I thought, well, I'll just do that because then I'll be able to see if it works, and then I can mount it properly. And then I'm like, actually, I'm not going to bother mounting it properly. It works perfectly. You can just about see if there's a bright light shining on it that there might be something reflective behind, but generally where it is in my house, there isn't. And so, yeah, I'm like, that is the quickest fully finished object ever. Like within about 3 minutes of finishing the stitching, I'd done it like this, and I'm like, do you know what? I'm just going to leave it like that. It's perfect. So I was really pleased to have got that one done. What else had I finished over Christmas? Well, I think the big thing is this. So this is Spinsterhood. That is what it is called. All Good in the Spinsterhood. And we've got our spinning lady, the spinster. She's got her bookshelf, her cat, her cup of tea and pot of tea. She's got sunshine and clouds, but it's shining on her because life is all good in the Spinsterhood. This is my design. It was inspired by a t-shirt actually I bought last year that had this expression on it, all good in the Spinsterhood. I'd never heard it before, but I just thought it was brilliant. You know, I'm not married, never married, no children. I am a full-fledged spinster, not least because I have a spinning wheel and I spin. I haven't done any for a little while, but you know, I do. So I just loved that. It just sums up the fact that life can be really good as a single person. So yeah, this is my new chart. As I speak, it's not yet in my Etsy shop, but by the time you see this video, it should be in the Etsy shop. It's only got 4 colours, dark blue, mid blue, yellow and green. The trees are done in these different geometric patterns, and the trunks as well, and the sort of bottom part is a kind of slightly stylized flower pattern. These were kind of inspired by those Jacobean crewel work patterns where you sort of get clouds, but also hillocks of grass with these sort of lines of thread. But I wanted it to be light, and I was inspired by a couple of patterns I've stitched recently from other designers where they've really thought about negative space and how to use the non-stitched space in order to provide shading or shape or suggest things. And so I really wanted not to have enormous amounts of stitching on this, and I'm really pleased with how that works, particularly in the trees and this grassy border and indeed the sky. There's actually very little stitching. You know, those are much quicker to stitch than you would think. You know, they are not full coverage by any means, and yet I think they're really effective in providing texture and interest. And I really enjoyed them. It's that kind of stitching I really like, is that sort of geometric patterned stitching, but then with the organic form. It's got letters, it's got motifs. I just am really delighted with how this has turned out. Yeah, I've got a couple of other designs along similar lines that I have in mind that I plan to work on sooner rather than later. But for now, Spinsterhood will be available. It'll be available in PDF format in my Etsy shop. All the links will be below. It's Ros Clark Craft. I'm going to set the price of this at £7, but Etsy may choose to do what it wants in terms of sales tax and so on. So I can't guarantee what price you will actually pay, depending where you are. I hope you'll enjoy that. I've stitched this in 3 classic colourworks and 1 anchor thread. So the yellow is the anchor. I really struggled finding a yellow that would show up enough, but also fit with the kind of light sort of feel of the thing. So I think I was pleased with where I ended up with that. But there is a conversion given for DMC and also for anchor. If you don't want to use the classic colourworks, then you can absolutely do that. You can see some variegation. Mostly I can see variegation on the woman because of the way the rest of the design is. The variegation doesn't really show to great effect, so it's absolutely fine, I think, to stitch this one in relatively solid colours, or you know, completely solid colours, and I don't think you will lose a huge amount from that. Mine is stitched on Zweigart Platinum 36 count, I want to say. It says in the pattern, it says in the chart, I can't remember. I think it's 36 count. Might be 32 count, can't remember. But anyway, that's mine. I did have to get a custom frame for it, but you might have other ways of framing it. It will probably work. I'm going to say this for you if you're watching. Mama Loves UGB. Make a really nice drum. Really nice drum, I think. Because, you know, it's got obviously that sort of landscape format to it. So I hope you'll love that. Maybe you'll stitch that for a single lady in your life, or if you are the single lady in your life, stitch that or if you know someone who's a spinner, stitch that. And watch out for others coming in the series, yeah, later in the year, I think. Do I have anything else that I need to say about that? 2 skeins. You need 2 skeins of the dark blue. I used 2 strands. That's right. I did 2 strands over 2 on 36 count. And about halfway through, I was like, I think I could probably have done this with 1 strand, but I didn't. So if you're using 2 strands of the dark blue, you do need 2 skeins of it. But 1 skein of the others is plenty. Good. So that's my other finish. Well, since we're on the shop, I will just mention again, Carmen. I say again, I've talked about it in 12 Days of Christmas, but not on the Flosstube episode. So Carmen I stitched last January. She is a reproduction sampler. She is a reproduction of an almost finished sampler. So the original sampler included this, Carmen M. Luce, age 9. Yep. And then there was a blank line here. So I filled that in with my name and age when I stitched it. There are options within the pattern. So this line here, Carmen stitched on the original, and I have done here over 1. I have given you suggestions of how you would do that if you prefer to stitch only over 2. The rest of the sampler is all over 2. So if you're an Ada stitcher or you just don't like stitching over 1, you can definitely do this sampler. And as I say, I've given suggestions for how you might do this last bottom bit. It does have some specialty stitches in it. So these are all eyelets, this big alphabet and this border. And then this alphabet and this border are 4-sided stitch. Again, if you don't want to do the specialty stitches, you don't have to. The big alphabet, I would suggest you just do with sort of blocks of 4 cross stitches, or you could do, I guess, 1 big cross stitch for each Algerian eyelet. For the 4-sided stitch, if you stitched this alphabet in cross stitch, you would find it was identical to this alphabet at the top. There is 1 letter that has 1 stitch different, but you might want to stitch basically the same alphabet twice. So I've also charted a sort of suggested alternative for this little section here, including a quote. And I chose a quote from the opera Carmen, which seemed appropriate, and some little motifs that go with that. And it just, you slightly move this border down to give you space to do the quote there. So there are options of different ways of stitching this, other than just the way Carmen did it precisely herself. She did stitch it, and this is the thing I loved about the sampler, with this whole range of colours. The original sampler I can't show you because it's actually in the back of the frame and I'm not taking it out. It's very faded and stained, and a lot of the stitching is coming away or has come away. So it's in quite poor condition. It was never framed, so it was hemmed, but not framed, so the back is just as faded as the front. So I've had to use my best guess about some of these colours. Some of them you can see reasonably clearly on the original, and some of them you can't tell at all. But what you can see is that she's changing her threads every couple of stitches. And so I've chosen a selection of colours that I think might look something like what she had originally chosen, but it is quite hard to tell. I've given conversions in the chart for sulky. This is stitched in sulky on 32 count. But there are also conversions for DMC, Anchor and Classic Colourworks. Yeah, this is 32 count antique white, Zweigart antique white, I think. If you do it on 32 count, which is the same size as the original sampler, you end up with something that fits perfectly in an off-the-shelf 12 by 12 frame, which is what this is. So I quite like that. I did not pay a lot of money for this frame at all because I could just buy it from Amazon. It did not need custom framing. So yeah, so that's Carmen. So I'm not, I think, ever going to be a reproduction sampler specialist. I may never do another one, but I own this one and I thought it was quite fun. I like all the colours. It's just alphabets and borders, so you absolutely could choose your own palette of colours for this. You could do it in a monochrome. I mean, you could just make it a red sampler or a black sampler. You could make it a a little bit reminiscent of a Scottish sampler and pick a red and a green and just alternate. Or you could pick any set of colours. You could definitely go blingier and brighter than this. You could go paler or more primitive than this. You could definitely fit it to whatever suits your taste. So that is Carmen. I don't know anything about Carmen who stitched this, and I have a whole video where I was introducing Carmen and the stitch along. So it used to be available, this chart, in sections on my website for free a year ago. My website is no longer in existence. It is now available all put together as one single PDF download with all the different sections and alternatives explained, on sale in my shop. Yeah, so I don't know anything about Carmen. She does not appear at all in any of the Ancestry UK records. I bought the sampler in the UK. I think it's a UK sampler, but it might not be. I don't think it's a Spanish sampler, because although Carmen M. Luce is a Spanish name, you see she gives her age 9 years. That's not Spanish, that's English. It could be an American sampler. She might have been an American immigrant, and there are people on American Ancestry, which I don't really have access to, but with much more similar names than you can find in the UK. It could be simply that she died. So she might not have been on a baptism register because she might have been from a Catholic family. She might have been born overseas. She might have been born in Spain. And she might have died before the next census. There's something somewhat ominous about the way that this stitching ends here. You know, I don't think Carmen meant to leave this empty. The whole sampler is so full. And she finishes halfway through a word. And even if she was abbreviating that word, that's not how you would normally abbreviate years. So I don't know. I do wonder if something happened to her. But I don't know if we'll ever know. So Carmen and Spinsterhood, both available in my Etsy shop. Link below. I hope you will enjoy stitching those. Good. What else have I been working on? Well, I have been working on, I'm not going to show you because it's a palaver to get, but I have finally got back to doing some work on A Saviour's Praise. So I'm going to see if I can put this back up on the wall behind. I'd carefully put it on the wall so that you would have it to look at. There we go. That you would have it to look at while I was talking. And then obviously I had to take it off. There we go. So yes, I have got back to A Saviour's Praise. I've not done it every day, but I have done some. I am working on the next deer in the bottom border. If I remember, I will take a photo and insert that there so you can see that I have genuinely got that out. I've been continuing to work on this. This is Satsuma Street Flower Friends Bertie. So I started this on Christmas Day when I did my YouTube live, and I wanted something that was relatively easy to stitch. Let's just put that behind there. Hopefully you can see that. So I've been making good progress on this. I've got to fill in some here, and then it just comes around a little bit here, and then go back and do the eyes and the legs of the flower. I might even get that finished this evening. I'm not sure, but I definitely want to get it finished quite soon because I'm feeling a little bit on edge about my number of whips. I watched Mama Loves CGB yesterday, her whip parade. 82 plus one she can't find. Honestly, I was feeling anxious as I was watching. 82. I mean, and as she was going through it, you could see she couldn't really remember all, you know, she'd get them out and she'd be like, oh, you know, I remember this. But it wasn't like, you can't keep track of 82 whips in your head. You just can't. And yeah, I would be feeling very anxious with that number. I'm feeling a little bit anxious with my number, and my number is 3. I don't really like having more than 2. So a big long-term project, that's fine. And then one project that I'm working on right now. And as I say, that was Bertie. But I allowed myself, because I was very excited about it, to make a start last week on another project. This was, so Marimi Crafts, Mariam was doing a birthday stitch along where she was inviting people to take a pattern and do their own colour conversion and go wild with colours. And obviously that was a challenge I could not resist. So I'm doing Hello from Liz Matthews berry patch. I will put a photo of the finished berry patch here. Mine is heavily adapted. So not only have I changed the colours completely, I'll put a photo here of a blurred version of my chart with my colours, but also you'll see I've changed it so that it's a circular finish so I can put it in a hoop. Her birthday was on the 4th of January, so I wanted to make a start then, even though I had another project going. So I haven't done loads on this, but I have done a bit, and that's why I really want to get Bertie finished so that I can carry on with this. Now, that's really washing out. That is this, yeah, that's more or less the colour of the fabric. It is a phenomenal fabric. It is Citrus Burst from Cross Stitch Bunny in 32 count, 28 count. Don't know. I've got the list, I've got the tag somewhere. I think it might be 28. Yeah, it's nice to stitch on, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful colour. Really, really vibrant yellows and greens. So I thought that would be perfect for this wild colours thing. Now, I want your advice. Oh, I was going to say I haven't got any haul, and I don't really do haul, but I did get some haul this week that I am going to mention. I spent some of my Christmas money on getting the sulky sets. So they come in those two big plastic boxes with 60 in each, something like that. Anyway, one set has arrived and the other hasn't arrived yet. And because it just arrived, and so I've done some stitching with sulky before, like the Carmen I stitched with sulky, and I really enjoyed it. But I'd only ever bought individual reels of it. I might have bought one of those sort of 6-packs. It was quite expensive as well. But you used to be able to buy individual reels of it in the UK from a website, and they were very inexpensive. And it was a really cost-effective way of buying embroidery thread, floss for stitching. That website, as far as I can tell, is no longer in operation in the UK. And the only places I could find that were selling sulky spools were, you know, obviously kind of third-party sellers, needlecraft shops, and they've gone up like maybe 3 times in price. I definitely used to pay, when I first bought them, I think it was less than £1 a spool, and it's now £2 something. Yeah, and they didn't necessarily have all the colours and everything. So I was glad that I bought the whole sets, because I do really enjoy stitching with it. But I do have a question about whether I should be stitching with it in this. I wanted to because it had just come and I was excited. But, so the flowers and the band are stitched with 2 strands of normal floss. I don't know what kind. I don't know if it's going to focus in if I go near enough. The strawberries are stitched in sulky. Just 1 strand of it. It really doesn't want to focus on that. I'm not sure that it's getting enough coverage. Maybe is that going to... Okay, I don't know whether you could see that or not. I might try and take a photo. I don't think there's quite enough coverage on this, which is one of the reasons I think this might be 28 count. I think on 32, but also maybe depending what I'm stitching. So here I've obviously got colours that are very different from the background colour, and the background colour is itself a proper colour, not just a neutral. So I think I might take those strawberries out and do them again with 2 strands of ordinary floss. But I am not going back to that until I have finished Bertie. And then I can focus on that as my project. So I do my A Saviour's Praise. The plan for that is supposed to be that I do that in the morning while I'm listening to the Bible and having my morning cup of tea, and do, you know, 20-25 minutes of that. And then the other project is what I do at other times of the day when I have time. So it ought to be finished, Bertie, quite soon, and then I can really focus on Berry Patch. After that, well, I don't like to make too many plans. It might be, finally, Jack Rabbit from A Year in the Woods, or it might be working on something following this, or it might be the next in the medieval series. So who can say? Anyway, that has been all my stitching for the week. I don't think I have any other interesting crafting to show you. We started art class back on Friday. We did our sketchbooks, but I don't really have anything from that to show you. I haven't been sewing, and I haven't really been doing any other crafting things, but maybe that will change. Who knows? So I hope you are all getting into the groove with your 2023 stitching and arting of various kinds. Let me know what you're working on in the comments. Don't forget, oh, that was the other thing I meant to say. Thank you. This was also my January Stitch Your Stash 2023 project. So that's my hashtag that I'm using to encourage me and hopefully others to pick up a stash, pick up a chart from your stash, something you already own, and stitch it. So I've owned this one. I can't remember, I didn't buy it quite immediately when it came out. I think it only came out last year, but I did buy it sometime last year. It's been sitting patiently in the folder on my iPad, waiting, just waiting for this moment where I'm going to do it in these wild colours on this wild fabric, completely mess it around to make it a different shape and a size, but I think I'm going to love it. So yes, if you are doing this, and I would encourage you to, pick something you already own and work on that, rather than, I mean, I'm not saying don't buy anything, I'm not saying don't buy new charts, but when you're thinking, oh, what shall I do next? Do something you already own, because you already bought that because you liked it, because you wanted to stitch it. So stitch it. Stitch Your Stash 2023. Use the hashtag. Good, I think that is it. I will be back probably in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you so much for watching.